Hey everyone, welcome to the Life-Changing Power of Ayurveda. My name's Talya Lutzker. I am honored to be your host, and today I am talking to my personal lymphatic health shiro, Ashley Black. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm great. I am so excited to talk to you. So everyone listening, when Ashley said yes to being a part of the summit, this was right up there with Rodney Yee and Deanna Batdorf and all of my real health heroes, because I have been using Ashley's tool in my Ayurvedic bodywork practice, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit because I've had amazing, absolutely incredible results on my own body, but with my clients. So Ashley is a #1 national best-selling author. Her book is called The Cellulite Myth. It's not fat, it's fascia. She's also the co-author of a scientific paper, The Effects of a Fascia Manipulation Device on Subcutaneous Fat Tissue and Cellulite Appearance in Middle-Aged Women. So I know a lot of people are listening to this being like, okay, sign me up. I want to learn all about this. So she's the inventor of a tool called the Fascia Blaster, and we're going to talk about that. But she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when she was young. It was juvenile RA. And she survived a deadly staph infection that left her with a bunch of medication-based pain management. So she was on a lot of pharmaceuticals, and she was just really determined to look for ways that eased her pain, that challenged the Western system, that challenged traditional techniques. And she discovered that a lot of her limitations were due to constrictions in her fascia, in her tissue. So it inspired her to create the Fascia Blaster, and that has just become a total movement because so many people are in the same boat of needing to open up their fascia and not knowing how to do it, not even knowing that they need to do it or that it's possible to shift. And so Ashley has been a pioneer in educating, especially middle-aged women who have cellulite, because that's kind of the biggest surface issue in our culture, but even more deeply, people who are really bound in their tissue and suffering as a result. She has created products that help us have a way out. So, Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, you are so welcome, and I am just dying to dive in and interrupt.
I know. Okay, go. Well, I'm going to let you tell more of your personal story. So I gave a little bit of a preview, but please jump in wherever you feel like you want to jump in right now.
Well, sure. I mean, I think for me, this quest to help people live a better life goes back to coming out of the womb for me. I want your audience to understand that this is so much of a life purpose that literally I've been through some of the craziest health events anyone has ever experienced. And for me, it was just, fuel for, igniting what I'm trying to do in the world. I was kind of giggling to myself when you're like, she's out trying to educate people about their fascia. And thank God cellulite came along because, to be honest with you, it's very difficult to get somebody to try something to feel better. But, boy, if you can make them look better, but it does. It makes me feel like we reach more people and people who, would never even look at Ayurvedic medicine, or they think that, any type of herbals is, hokey dokey stuff. So it's been actually my pleasure to cross over and actually start scooping people out of that Western mindset. And, if they buy my products for cellulite and then they start to understand what it does for your health, I'm fine with that, So
yeah, totally.
The practitioner in me is like, oh, you've got to learn how to open your fascia a layer at a time. I want to teach you about adhesions. I want to teach you why you know this. But, at the end of the day, it's just like, going vegan or, doing anything natural. You feel the difference and then you want to learn more. And I think that's what's really happened, with the movement is it kind of started with cellulite because that's an easy sell. But now if you are in my, social media groups and all of that, everybody's talking about the health benefits and the pain and how they're using it on their parents and their children. So that's been really exciting for me. But to back up and give you the backstory, I was born with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I think when you're a kid, whatever you have is your normal. So I never really felt like a crippled child. And my parents never treated us different. There were 6 of us, so they didn't have time to slow down for one crippled kid, and they put me in gymnastics, and, I had good days and I had bad days, and, they tried to take me to the doctors, and, they tried to give me medications, and, when you're a child, you just sort of do what your parents think you should do. But I always kind of had this disdain for, I remember being a little girl and having a doctor say, oh, well, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 18, and you really shouldn't try, snow skiing because if you fall, and so I think at a very, very young age, I was just had this kind of, spirit of, wow, I'm really not going to let anybody determine my fate. I just competed in a gymnastics meet, so I'm not really worried about this arthritis thing,
Right,
and
right.
even as a small child, I would food chart. I started doing hot and cold tub baths. I'm 46, so this is back in the 70s when, Bruce Jenner would be on the cover of a magazine, and I'd read how they would, drink egg whites and, raw and all that kind of stuff. So I was just a kid that grew up experimenting with my body. And really by the time I was 18, I had quit taking medication and was, real big into fitness. Think back to the days when step aerobics came out and there were health clubs popping up everywhere. I was just, teaching 2 or 3 classes a day, and I learned that, stretching and eating well and, hot and cold tub baths and things like that were better medicine than the medicine. So that's kind of where the spirit of all this came from. But then, I was training to be in a triathlon. I'd already done some marathons. And when I was 28, which was right after I had my second child, I just happened to be in the hospital when there was this very bizarre flesh-eating bacteria in the hospital that was coming from the oceans in Galveston. I was in Houston at the time. And it entered into my hip capsule, and I lost half my hip in about 24 hours, and then the disease spread into the spinal column, and it infected the nervous system, which gives you mad cow disease type symptoms. And I ended up in a fight for my life. Well, and that was something I completely didn't know how to fix. So just to cut to the chase, I ended up having 9 hip surgeries, maggot therapy, all the grossest things you could ever think of, and then ended up about a year later having a hip replacement and a complete pelvis rebuild. And funny enough, when I was reading up on Ayurvedic, I found out that it was, Indian based, and I actually went to New Delhi, India to get my hip replaced.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing. The doctors there are very open. They listen to what you want. It was very important for me to have symmetry. And we all know that in Western medicine, for the most part, when you get a hip replacement, they just take it out and stick it back in. But I had almost a 4-inch leg length discrepancy from basically the hip collapsing, and then, of course, the ribs collapse. And, so they had this guy, I can't describe him any other way than he looked like a member of ZZ Top, and, he was going to be the guy that straightened me out during the surgery. It's kind of their version, I guess, of a chiropractor or, some type of, energy healer, body worker, whatever we're calling it these days.
Right.
So then I went through that experience, came out really, really well, and by that time I had already started going and taking dissection courses and learning about fascia, and, this is kind of, you still have to think back, I don't know, I'm 46, so we're talking still 17, 18 years ago. This is when active release technique was coming out. People were starting to, get out of that older, drug and surgery mindset, and, I started finding a few people that were open to the tissue work, and, you can flash forward 17 years, I I became so good at, being able to assess fascia, open fascia, reinforce it with biomechanics that, I really had, by all accounts, a spectacular career in pro sports, and then moved on to Hollywood and worked with some really amazing people there. But, my passion has always been, those little girl Ashleys out there that don't know what to do. And so that was the inspiration for the Fascia Blaster. I really wanted people to be able to treat themselves, because fascia, just like hydrating and meditating and good food, is something that you really need to do all the time, not just when you can go and have treatment, And I also know that realistically a lot of people can't afford any type of treatment, I have people tell me they saved up paychecks for my product, and it's, not even $100. So for me, the masses and the education that comes with it is really what I'm into right now.
Right. It's so awesome. Well, and, the connection, the bridge between fascia, fasciology, and Ayurveda and how they go together is really significant. And that's why I refer to you as my lymphatic health hero, because in Ayurveda...
I love that.
Yeah.
I need the T-shirt, Talya.
You what?
I said I need the T-shirt that says that.
Yeah, you do. You need the T-shirt. That's so cute. So the bridge is really, the dhatus, which are the tissues of the body. Lymph is the primary tissue that we feed with our foods and with our digestive health. And when lymph is stagnant, all the other tissues are blocked. So even cellulite in Ayurveda, we go back to, okay, well, we got to move this person's lymph. I mean, that's what needs to be moved primarily. And so with your tool, the Fascia Blaster, and I'm going to have you describe it in just a moment, but the way I found you is I have a client who, you've got these different phases of fascia freak out. And I printed it out online like at least a couple years ago, I think. And I had a client who was basically phase 7 freak out. She's had fibromyalgia for many years, has had lots of pain in her muscle, her joints. She's been very bound in her tissue. I mean, crazy bound. And she found your tool, and I came to, I work with her every week. I do Ayurvedic body work with her. And she was like, I want you to use this on me. And we were already using, have you ever heard of a gua sha?
Gua sha, Rasen, all the different.
Yeah, so more traditional Chinese medicine. We were using gua sha.
By the way, let me just say this, Talya. I'm all
please.
for it. I am all for whatever tool. I don't care if you go in the kitchen and find a spoon that can stretch your fascia. If it works, it works,
Yes, I agree. And but what was happening with her, because her tissue was so bound, so tight, that the gua sha was, it does help for sure. It would get more blood flow into the tissue, but the Fascia Blaster, because of the way that it's shaped and the way that you can manipulate the tool, we were just able to penetrate her tissue in a way that we couldn't with the gua sha.
Yes.
And so I've been Fascia Blasting her for at least 2 years now, about 2 years, and she's gone from a phase 7 to somewhere between a phase 2 and a phase 3. I mean, the backs of her legs look so good. She has more definition in her musculature, and her tissue is pliable, and she's not in pain, and she's doing yoga every day, and she's not in pain. And I mean, it's a miracle. That's why I really wanted you to be a part of this summit, because I think that this tool is so important for people who are interested in Ayurveda to know about and to understand whether or not they use your tool, the Fascia Blaster, although I hope they do, just to know about manipulating the fascia and moving that tissue as being so crucial for overall health and wellness and pain relief.
100%. So I would love to comment on the phases of fascia freakout. It's actually super Googleable if you just type it in just like that, phases of fascia freakout. Because, you know, one of the things that I have learned over, you know, almost 20 years of studying fascia is that there's not really good places, like one good place to go to get information, you know, and you have people calling it different things. You know, these people over here call it connective tissue and these people call it a membrane. You know, you go to the biology books and they've got, you know, arachnoid matter and, you know, Galeb aponeurotica and all this kind of stuff. And all that stuff is just code words for fascia. And what I wanted to do with the phases of fascia freakout was to help people to understand how they got there. Because, you know, once you end up with a fibromyalgia diagnosis or you're just in pain all the time or you have migraines or sciatica, you're not thinking about all of the things that got to that point, you know, and we just think about the diagnosis. But if you can really see the big picture of how one little thing can happen, the fascia system comes in to protect, starts to put things on lockdown, you know, then the other muscles or, you know, places of flow, lymphatic flow, they have to overwork and just, it happens over time. And we don't get those scary diagnoses till we're in like 3, 4, or 5 in the phase chart. So I really encourage your listeners to just look at it because I think it gives you a very broad understanding of how impactful, you know, fascia is to all of these things that most people would think of are kind of unrelated. Right. And then the second thing you said, I was just like massively taking notes. You know, I think that there are so many tools out there. Like I love gua sha, I love cupping, and in fact, I think cupping is a fascia stretch. It's like pulling fascia up like mozzarella cheese, you know, so there's a lot of benefits to that. You know, of course, nothing can take the place of, you know, human hands and human healing with all the amazing, you know, body work techniques that are out there. But the fascia blaster really does do something unique. And I think the first thing it does is that it allows you to treat yourself, you know, so that it's not something that you can only get twice a week or twice a month or however often, you know, people are able to go. But the design, it looks a little scary, you know, it kind of has like claws and prongs, but, you know, when I was inventing it, everybody was inventing all these different things that roll, and it's really the rolling that keeps it from working on the fascia system and which keeps it from working on the lymph system. You know, I think of what the purpose of the fascia blaster is to kind of get everything moving and out of the way so that you can do deeper work. And I would throw, you know, fascia is a fluid system as well. There's fluid inside the fascia. You know, you have obviously, you know, your blood, which is the fluid system, and then you have the lymph, that's the fluid system. And the reality is I don't care what kind of good body worker you are, if all that stuff is smashed down and not moving, you can't even reach it, you know?
That's right.
In a body work session. And then, you know, as I was reading up on Ayurvedic and all the amazing, you know, supplements, all I could think of is that, you know, the reality is our blood runs inside of the fascia, and if there's any restrictions in the fascia that keep the blood from flowing, all of those amazing supplements aren't going to get anywhere. They're not going to get to the cells. They're not going to get to the skin. They're not going to get, you know, where they're supposed to be going. So to me, this goes so hand in hand with the whole Ayurvedic lifestyle.
Yes, it does. And, you know, I lead Ayurvedic cleanse programs. That's one of my all-time favorite things to do because, you know, diet is what feeds the lymphatic system. And so when we just clean up the diet from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're really getting in alignment with our unique constitution, the way that our body is going to digest and assimilate foods, herbs, supplements, like you said. But an integral part of the Ayurvedic cleanse programs that I lead, and this is so important, I can't emphasize it enough, just like you can't, is that we do body care
without fascia blasting. Like that just
you have to move your lymph. You have to move your lymph while you're changing your diet.
Yes, 100%. Well, also too, you know, the fascia is cells just like every other cells in the body. You know, I run into the people who eat really unhealthy and they're mad. You know, they're scrubbing away on their cellulite and they're like, you know, oh, I'm seeing a little difference. You know, like, what are these other women doing? Like, they look perfect. And, you know, I always say, look, you know, you don't have to have a perfect diet to have smooth fascia, and yes, you can, massage yourself with the fascia blaster. You can get a great result. But boy, when you take out the sugar and start putting in the nutrition, the fascia loves that just like every other system of the body.
Absolutely. So can you describe the fascia blaster just so, everyone can go and look at it online, but I would love to have you describe it a little bit more, especially how you designed it to not roll. It's almost like a little claw. I describe it like a little claw.
Yeah, it's like a handlebar with claws, and you just scrub it. And I always encourage people to start, between the skin and the muscle. So it starts with a little bit of pressure, and then you just work your way in. Once you've been doing it for a year, you can, really get deep with those claws. But Talya, you and I both know, like, what it looks like in a video is nothing like what it feels like.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And one of the things I love about it, especially if you are somebody of a kapha dosha, or you have a kapha imbalance, which means you're heavy, wet, dense, congested, you've got like extra tissue around, especially maybe around your breasts, your thighs, your hips, your butt. Using the fascia blaster, like you had just mentioned, it really just gets everything moving and unlocked so that you can do deeper work. So I love to have my kapha predominant clients, or my clients who have a real kapha imbalance that's showing as this excess in the tissue, to fascia blast in the shower from feet to heart, hands to heart, so you're moving in the same direction as the lymphatic system flows. Or even to, do the sacred Ayurvedic practice of Abhyanga, where you rub really high quality medicated oil onto your skin, or it could even just be plain coconut oil or sesame oil or sunflower oil, and then fascia blast when you've got oil on your skin, because different areas you'll find are you'll be able to feel with the fascia blaster where you're more stuck. You'll be able to feel where there's more stagnancy, because there might be a little bit of pain, or like the tissue is kind of bound up and really tight. And so you just keep fascia blasting there to loosen up that tissue. And if you do that, even like a very stubborn area or an area of your body that you really want to shift, like for a lot of women, it's around the belly or the backs of the thighs or the hips. You do that every day, you literally start to reshape your body, and you really start to see change that diet and exercise alone doesn't go quite as deep. I really think that this is the missing piece when it comes to feeling as absolutely radiant, vibrant, and alive as you can, is to get into that lymphatic tissue. And I just love the fascia blaster for that reason. I'm a big
Talya,
fan.
I love what you said about the reshaping, because I am a lifelong fitness person and used to do fitness competitions. I used to judge them, so I was looking for symmetry, which really, symmetrical people are beautiful. It's like, it makes a big difference, even symmetrical faces and things like that. And if your fascia is pinning you or holding you in strange places, like I can tell you what we see on our page, in our private group on Facebook, because people share the most unbelievable photographs. But like little things, like when we sit down and our jeans with our button, poke us in the stomach, that can actually start to bind the tissue right there. So no one's making the connection of, why do I have like this belly pooch with kind of this pouch underneath, and it's coming from the tight clothing. So there's no amount of exercising or dieting that's going to release the fascia that's binding us into those little pooches and pouches. And then I do the same thing on the legs. Like, for me, I've worked with so many people that tend to kind of squeeze their butt for their posture instead of, getting into their transverse abs to support them. And so because they are always constantly squeezing their butt, deep, by the head of the femur, they start to get fascia puckers in that area. And so you could lift and do 10,000 squats, but your butt is not going to be full and round, because it's the fascia that's binding it into these little, dents and dimples and puckers. So when you start releasing that, you're going to have the most amazing body up under there. You're not going to have any of those strange distortions that, take you into those dysfunctional sort of, not only the way it looks, but the dysfunctions in the way that it feels.
Right. And it's the same for when we're wearing a lot of underwire bras or bras that really, like the fascia just underneath the breast can be so bound, like it can actually, and adhere to the ribs. And so you actually need to get underneath the breast and really open that up so that you have lymphatic flow, which is your immune system. It's what comes to your rescue when you have a foreign invader. Cancer is a foreign invader, and you want to be able to really have all of these channels open. So I think it's so important what you said of, cellulite is what has gotten people into the door with you, but it's really the deeper health benefits that have people stay. And, for me, teaching Ayurveda, and the way I came to it is through autoimmune disorder, really intense.
Me too, girl.
And, I guess in a way I rebel sometimes around finding the quote unquote the hook that's going to get people in the door because I'm like, doesn't everyone just want to feel good about who they are and feel good in their body and feel like they can move and have energy? So I love getting to talk with someone like you because I think that it really opens up a whole world of what's possible, even beyond fascia blasting. Now they can add the healthy diet. Now they can add rubbing oil into their skin. And it's just so great what you're doing. I am really so honored to get to meet you and have you be a part of this event. I think you're so awesome.
Well, I'm so excited, and I'm glad that you have an appreciation for, the way in which I chose to market the product, because I came more from your space. I was always about being healthy and looking the best you can and being the best you can be, and also accepting what you can't change. I've had 3 C-sections, and I've had, a lot of hip surgeries, and, I have a lot of injuries, so definitely I'm all about learning to love and embrace, those things that you can't change. But my goodness, if you can do something good for yourself, we should do it. I look sometimes at my Facebook ads, and it's like, I'll read some comment where, somebody's saying something like, it's just a trend. If it looks too good to be true, then it is. And, and I get it. I get the cynical approach to it. And I'm just so glad that enough people decided to try it, that it really did lead to this movement. Because I do feel like once they get in, then they get curious about the diet, and then they get curious about, meditating. And, I know so many of the people already in our private group are Ayurvedic practitioners. I was sharing with Talya just before the call that my brother's girlfriend is a practitioner, so I think that in our society, and I've watched it just in the 20, however many years I've been doing this, I used to be the complete crazy person, people are like, what is she doing? Fascia? Never heard of it. Could hardly even Google the word.
Right.
And what I'm seeing is this huge societal transition to, hey, maybe the drugs and the surgery and the overachieving and the overscheduling and the stress, processed foods, maybe this wasn't advancements in our species. And, I'm starting to see a shift back. I was sharing with Talya before the call that I am spending a lot of my personal time in Costa Rica, and I'm surfing, and I don't put processed food in my mouth. I fascia blast every day. I have an amazing regime of supplements and nutrition, and I meditate. And, I don't know Ayurvedic medicine. I'm going to dive into it now that we've had this call. But I just think that the world really does want to go that way, and they just kind of need somebody to help bridge that gap. So that's where I feel I am. I can go scoop them up from mainstream and hopefully dump them into, a better place, which is where I think probably most of these practitioners are living.
Yeah, it's so great. Thank you for the work that you do.
Maybe do you want me to educate them just a little bit on which one maybe they should do first, or if they're a practitioner versus a user? Do we have time for that?
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I personally really think when you're beginning to open the tissue that it's called the face blaster or the master blaster, because the claws are really teeny tiny, and if you don't push too hard, it's fantastic for that lymphatic flow. So if you're doing Talya's cleanse or her diet, those would be the two that I would recommend starting with. Normally, I recommend the original fascia blaster, but with the level of knowledge that your practitioners have, I think that they'll be good with the master blaster. The master blaster was intended to do the deeper work, but it really just boils down to how hard you push. So I think the master in the face would be a great starter tool. If you're looking to have it for your clients, I would recommend buying maybe some multiples of the fascia blaster and having them start with the fascia blaster. It's less intense than the master blaster, so you kind of need to know what you're doing with it. And then anyone who's doing very deep work, I would recommend getting the mini one. It has a point on it, and I'm telling you, on a regular basis, I am using that point to basically pull fascia off of bones. Like I said, I was just working on my boyfriend, and he was having some fascia wrapped around his shin. So those little points are fantastic for that super detailed work. But if anybody ever has questions, they can reach out in our contact forms. We have the largest, this is so crazy, imagine this, Talya. It's a lot of work, but it's super fun. We have the largest closed women's Facebook group on all of Facebook in the world.
Wow.
So we have a lot of women who are really trying to help each other. I am the meanest moderator. I don't mean that mean. I just don't allow, any crap to go on in my page. And it's great. It's definitely a culture of women supporting women and talking about all of these, difficult issues that we all face health-wise, particularly as we age. And so I would invite them to join it. It's obviously free. It's just Fascia Blasters, the group, the closed private group.
Okay, great. Awesome. Ashley, thank you so, so much. This was really great to talk with you, and I'm so stoked you're a part of this event.
Oh, Talya, it was absolutely my pleasure, my humble honor. I just give so much gratitude to you and all your practitioners and everything that you guys are doing in the world. I think we're all on the same page and want the same thing, so I send you my biggest prayers and blessings, and anything I can ever do in the future, just let me know.
Thank you, and me to you, yes. Thank you so much. Everyone listening, thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the Life-Changing Power of Ayurveda. Namaste.